The book Songs of Blood and Sword is for me a form of justice. Justice is a very long journey, it's a very long road. It's been denied to us in the courts, it's been denied to us politically. But we seek it still. And I think part of that justice is memory. Part of that justice is archiving what happened.
You draw the comparison between your father's killing and Benazir Bhutto's killing. Do you think there was a link between the people who were behind both?
You know, there were similarities. I mean, we saw when my father's killing happened, the streets were washed up and the blood and glass was removed. And I asked my aunt then, the Prime Minister, I said, why did they do that? Why did they clean the scene of the crime? And she said to me, oh, this isn't the movies, Fatih, this is government, we do things differently. And her refusal to look into that, I mean, her acceptance of a bad investigation made it possible for the same thing to happen to her crime scene.
Do you have any doubts about who you think was behind your father's killing?
There is a moral responsibility for my father's murder. And that moral responsibility rests with Benazir, with my aunt, and her government. They presided over a state whereby the security forces, the police, were empowered to act with impunity. It was her government that stopped my family from filing an FIR. It was her government that arrested the survivors and the witnesses to the murder, but not the police.
But you've been clearer than that. You said very clearly in the book that you hold Asif Ali Zardari responsible.
We know the police pulled the trigger, but who gave them their orders? There's the order and the orchestration. We saw not only an environment whereby these encounter killings were accepted by the state and were celebrated by the state, but then we also saw the government engage in the cover-up. And then we saw the aftermath. You know, one of the police officers who we hold responsible for my father's murder was given on our last Pakistan Day a Hilal-e-Imtiyaz by Asif Zardari, the president. And he awarded him a national medal for his services to the Pakistani people. Does that include killing Murtaza Bhutto?
And yet you are taking on the president of your country. How do you react to what's going on in the parliament now, a virtual stripping away of the president's power while he's in office?
Well, I think it's too early to celebrate Parliament's move just yet. I mean, I think there's a very large difference between what people say and what people do. So until we've seen the actions take place, I remain cautious.
What is it about the subcontinent that seems to have this fatal attraction, and I call it fatal, with dynasties?
Why we have kept this fascination with dynasty, I don't know, because it seems to me incredibly dangerous. It seems to me to negate participation. You know, we all have these large populations that are shut out of a system unless they belong to a family or a established
party. But you're
party.
A part of that family. Your mother stands for election. Your brother seems to have some political ambitions as well.
No, well, I mean, my brother is 19 and he's going to be a college student. But we've never been in power. You know, we are not. I wasn't born in the Prime Minister's house. My brother didn't learn to walk on the steps of the presidency. You know, we've always remained outside.
In a sense, you're seen as the other Bhuttos. Here we have one part of the Gandhi family that is seen as the other Gandhis, always in the opposition.
It's funny though, you know, because it's only in India where I've heard this term, the other Bhutto. Because as far as it works genetically, I would say so far we are the only Bhuttos, I think, you know. The other Bhuttos are the new ones. I mean, to point out, in fact, how it works. We don't have matrilineal societies.
You speak in your book about how it was actually Asif Ali Zardari who phoned you first to tell you about your father.
Well, I called the Prime Minister's house because we had heard the firing. It was very close. We were being restricted from leaving our house by the police. I asked to speak to my aunt and I was told by Asif Zardari that I couldn't. And when I insisted, he said, oh, don't you know? Your father's been shot. I was 14 years old at the time. And the idea that someone could say that, not just to a child, but to someone who obviously adored and lived for her father, seemed unbelievably cruel.
You, your mother, your brother seem to live in Pakistan. You quite openly accuse the government. That some would say actually belies that there is a threat to you or that the people in power are guilty?
Well, to that, I mean, I think it's an enormously simplistic way to look at something. And it occurs to me that what is an answer that will please people? When I'm dead, will that be an answer? Will that finally prove the danger? My father spoke often of the corruption, of the violence, and he was killed for it. I think that's ample proof of how dangerous life is when you're speaking against the establishment.